now of your drugs are generic, most people taking generics, every time you go to refill your prescription, you may be getting a different generic and made by a different company, which may have different, they're actually doing something. They're controlling how that ingredient, how the active drug gets into your body. So one drug may be at the 80% level, one generic. The other one may be at the 125% level. One may be at the 125% level. And if you're being switched from one to the other, that can wreak havoc on your system.
You may now be rightfully frightened. Good news for moderate drinkers. Let's keep the word moderate front and center here for those of you now seeking permission for what you did over the 4th of July holiday, right? More notes for those who can't seem to push away from the buffet table, and that ever-present warning about what Obamacare still has in store for everybody. Every Tuesday, we welcome in Newsmax Deputy Health Editor Nick Tate, who is here to kind of make sense of everything that goes on. Good to see you again, my friend.
You too, sir.
Here we go. Widespread manufacturing. This is a frightening statement to read right up front, because mostly everybody takes medication of some kind, and it is generic. Here's the statement from a top doctor here. Widespread manufacturing irregularities at drug factories in India are putting Americans' health at grave risk. That's scary. How did we get to this point?
It is scary. Generics have really been the thing that has been pushed by doctors and by health advocates because they're cheaper. Legally, they have to be chemically identical to some form to brand name drugs, and you can save a lot of money. The problem is many of the places that supply these drugs are from countries that do not have the safety standards that we have. India, for instance, the FDA has now banned imports from India involving 3 major companies that supply about 40% of our generics because of manufacturing problems, and there's been a host of recalls this year on everything from allergy drugs to depression medicine to Lipitor. And the concern, of course, is most consumers don't know what's in them. They don't know what the percentage of the active ingredients are, and they don't know where they're coming from. So the concern about generics is there are many, many more questions than we've really answered.
Isn't there supposed to be, or should there be, some sort of check system here in America as these drugs come in and are sold to American consumers to make sure they are for real?
In the hyper-regulated society that we live in this country, you would think that that's the case, but in fact there are just spot checks that happen. Many of these drug companies will buy bulk generics. They buy them in huge batches, and we don't know where they're all coming from. So if you as an average consumer go to your pharmacist and say, where did it come from, what's the percentage, the odds are that guy's not going to be able to tell you. And they're not as closely regulated as you would be led to believe.
The unfortunate thing about all this is, from what I'm gaining, is there's nothing we can do right now. It simply is going to go unchecked.
There's really no, usually at the end of a program like this, we like to say, well, here's the takeaway, here's the message. The closest we can get to a message is ask your doctor if, at least for now, until they sort this out with India in particular, at least for now, ask your doctor whether a brand name drug is a better option for you than a generic.
New report coming out saying that low to moderate alcohol consumption leads to a reduced risk of heart attack or a life-threatening flaw in the main artery from the heart. Let's be very frank. We hear these studies all the time. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit less. No, don't drink it all. Is this just the continuing factor that we're always, and some researchers are always looking at things and finding new ways, and the body's changing?
It's so easy to become cynical about studies like this, because one week coffee is good for you, the next week it's bad for you. One week wine is good for you, the next week it's bad for you. Fat, what kind of fat? But this is one of those studies that really looks more broadly at the benefits of particularly wine and beer, and finds that on balance, there are 2 studies actually that were involved, looked at a lot of people, and what they found is if you're a woman and if you have 1 drink a day, no more, you lower your risk of heart attack and something called abdominal aortic aneurysm, which is essentially ballooning of the main artery from your heart. When it bursts, it's often life-threatening. You die in a hurry, in a heartbeat, so to speak. So 1 glass of wine or beer, 1 alcoholic drink a day. For men, it's 2. No more than just a binge drink and go crazy. But the evidence is stacking up in favor of moderate alcohol consumption as a good thing.
I can see doctors going, please don't put this study out there. Every time one of these studies come out there, I see somebody else who goes out there and says, oh, okay, doc, I can have a couple of extra drinks in there. The doctors must absolutely hate
They
these
do,
studies.
and I once had a doctor who said, I shouldn't tell you this, but actually you can boost the level of your good cholesterol if you have a little wine every day. He said, you won't read it in the medical literature too much, but it's really true. All
right, now something else that Americans always do, we eat. There was a great joke on Letterman last night where he talked about the fact that there's a food chain out there now, a restaurant chain that's having $10 all-you-can-eat Friday appetizers. And Letterman said, gee, how wonderful. If there's one thing Americans need, we're always hungry. We need to eat more. The vast majority of older baby boomers are overweight or obese, according to a new U.S. Census Bureau report. This can't be really new news, though, because anybody who looks and reads knows that we're fat and getting fatter.
We are. What's new about this study is the number is so high. It's more than 3/4 of men, and it's almost 2/3 of women that are either clinically obese or overweight by the statistics in this country. It's a huge number. The other thing, there was a second study that was released just yesterday that followed this study and concluded it's not diet that's the problem. We're consuming the same amount of calories that we were 20 years ago, but we are not moving as much.
We're not exercising.
We're not getting out there moving. And in 1994, about 1 in 10 men reported they don't get any exercise at all, and about the same number of women. Today, it's up to 45 to 50%. Why? Technology, the iPhone, the iPad. I'm not going to blame Apple, but we are so consumed with activities that are sedentary. We're spending longer hours in the office, getting in early, staying late, and a lot of us really are not getting out and getting that 30 minutes of exercise every day. And I think that study is really putting its finger on something. It's not so much you eat, but it's getting out and moving around.
At least get out and do something.
Yes.
Do anything at all. Okay, about a minute left here. Here comes Obamacare. Price hikes right around the corner. You warned about this. We've been talking about this, and now it's going to happen. And the Obama administration hopes you don't see it happening.
Well, we're reading in the major media about the September surprise. That's when the new numbers are going to come out. Is it really going to surprise anybody that rates for health care and premiums are going up? We've been talking about it for years. The question is how high and what will the spin be? And what we're also seeing is that I was reading this week about the strike team that's been formed in the White House, and I'm sure there's another one that's been formed on the other side, to spin the spin on these numbers. So what I would expect is we're going to see that for a lot of people, those costs are going to go up. Some people will see their health insurance costs moderated. If you have a pre-existing condition, if you're a woman, if you're older, Obamacare puts some limits on those price costs, but to pay for those benefits for those folks, the rest of us are going to pay more. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to a lot of folks, but with the Obamacare problems we've seen so far, it's certainly not going to be good news for the White House.
Trust me, it will be a surprise to some people. I
Maybe
have no doubt about it.
Maybe
All
so.
right. Every Tuesday, Nick Tate joins us. And oh yeah, by the way, don't forget, be sure to go to healthradarnow.com to get your special offer on the Obamacare Survival Book. Learn to survive it. Learn to survive it the right way. And we'll talk more about it here. Nick, as always, a pleasure, my friend. Thank you. We'll see you again next week.
Good to be with you.
All right. MidPoint continues, because every day right here on the Newsmax TV network, no matter what it is, we question everything.